and it's right, it's a natural reaction. People always come up with probably my feelings of pessimism about the world we live in. Isn't surprising because it is a shitty place. You get the opportunity to share with other people about how shitty it is. You go through that process first. But I have to say that for someone who loves reading about the civil rights movement in the 60s and the Black Panther Party and all the struggles, what's happened in the last few years across the world is bigger than whatever took place then. It's involved millions of more people, Black Lives Matter movement, the civil rights movement did in the 60s. It's involved more sports stars getting involved. Although obviously, it'd be good if Muhammad Ali was still around, but nevertheless, it's involved more sports stars being involved in doing acts. I mean, I don't know whether people have heard of Naomi Osaka. Yeah, she was radicalised because she's the best black American women tennis player. She was radicalised and took part in the demonstrations against Trayvon Martin when she was a kid, when she was a teenager. When George Floyd happened, she got on a plane, she could do because she had the money, and flew to Minnesota to join the riots. Yeah, not your usual tennis star. Yeah, and then when Jacob Brown got shot in the back, yeah, she refused to go out and play, and it led to not only the tennis tournament stopping, but the baseball had to stop, and all the other sports in America had to stop for a few days because of what the police had done. Now, this is huge. This is huge, and I joke about this. My sister lives in somewhere called Letchworth Garden City. Well, answer to the postcard who's heard of it. Anyway, nearby where she lives, there's a place called Hitchin. My sister virtually had a mini stroke when she found out that they had a Black Lives Matter protest themselves in that place. It touched, and globally, there were protests in Nigeria against the police. It touched globally a far bigger way, and they still have reverberations now. Yeah, it's still the biggest thing in terms of people that can see, because they are bloody nasty, aren't they? And they're getting nastier, aren't they? The Bolsonaros, your Trumps, they're getting nasty. And why are they coming to power? Because capitalism has run out of ways to make money at screwing us, and therefore has to screw us even harder. And it therefore is even more vicious. So it's not like my mum used to say, look, I'm going to have to teach you how to make a curry, because when you leave home, you won't be able to get it elsewhere, right? Now, obviously, she didn't know it would end up being in everybody's supermarket in a pack. You know what I mean? Not I'm saying my mum's curries or anything like that. Got to get me to a load of trouble, won't I? But in terms of how people live, I was brought up in a place called Hounslow. I was one of the few Asian families there when I grew up, and I had a group of Nazis that used to chase me and my white mates every time we were out in the street, okay? And most of the time we were running, unfortunately. Well, it wasn't enough of us to fight them back, although when we had the opportunity, anyway, it's a whole other story. But the point I'm making is that if you go to Hounslow now, we outnumber white people, and it's a good thing. Don't be wrong. Actually bringing your colour to your neighbourhood is a good thing, right? White poverty is worse, I think, personally, where you actually live with other cultures and it actually feels better. I don't know where people live in Manchester, but it actually feels better to live in a diverse, multicultural community for all of us. It's not any good for coppers. It's not any good for judges. They did a report, I think came out yesterday, that said that most judges were racist. It isn't any good for people that are involved in the state, like the police. These people are built on those sort of ideas, and our immigration laws have got worse. As society's got better, those things have got worse. So I do think we're in a different place, and I do think that all those things about not just the Black Lives Matter, but the Sarah Everard thing and everything else show the potential that people who want to come back together, regardless of their sexuality or their race, that wanted to fight for something better than we're in now. And I suppose the point that I want to make is that solidarity. That is a manifestation of real solidarity, isn't it? Of doing that, yeah. And actually, people have to get to the point where we look at what's going on in the world and what's at stake. In the SWP, one of the phrases we use is we describe the current period as the 1930s in slow motion. And it's important to understand this because when the ruling class can't rule by any other means, they will inadvertently go towards fascism. Yeah, that's what they did in the 30s. That's what led to Hitler. That's what led to war. Yeah, that's what led to the increase in racism, the scapegoating of Jews, the 6 million dead in the concentration camps. It was part of a strategy about how they saved capitalism, because they definitely didn't want socialism. They didn't want a society where actually we all lived and respected each other regardless of sexuality and fought for and lived in a better world together. And the stakes are that high at the moment about what sort of world we live in. One that's dominated by profit, or one that we fight in unity for a different sort of world. And it isn't true that people don't fight back on a mass scale. I mean, I know it's next week's meeting, but I'll give it a plug. Yeah, Revolution is choice of the people. You know, they're in the second revolutionary wave in the Middle East at the moment. It isn't true that millions of people aren't willing to fight against this system and want to fight for something better. But they're told, to, well, if you I can't really say it anymore because it doesn't really fit. You could have said it with Corbyn. You can't really say if we let Keir Starmer, everything will be better. You know, not even a Labour supporter is going to believe me when I say that, am I? But you understand that you rely on someone else that's going to do it for you. There's someone who says, I can run capitalism better for you, and I'll be fairer, and I'll be non-racist, and I'll do all these things, yeah? That isn't going to happen. That's just something they sell you to tell you that you get off the streets, you stop occupying the factory, you stop your general strike, and somehow you rely on a few of us come to the top that will do it for you. Yeah? That isn't what we put forward in SDP. We believe that the majority of people are the best people to decide how to run society. That through mass struggle we will form organisations to way to change society. So the idea of a united front, the idea of stop to racism, is about the idea that if you want to stop fascism across the world in Europe, then you have to create an organisation that brings everyone together that wants to fight against racism. Not just revolutionaries that want to fight, but reformists and other people, trade unions, church groups, community groups, civil rights organisations. You want everyone, and everyone, old and young, gay and straight, black and white, you want them all together to fight against racism together, because that's a force that can stop fascism. But it isn't enough to stop fascism, because racism will keep rearing its head in capitalism. As we discussed, they'll find other ways to get in, and that's why you have to organise for overthrowing that society and replacing it with something better. And that's why we do believe in the power of workers to be able to change society. And if you believe that you want to achieve a world that fights for that sort of world, that eradicates racism, that has no compromise, that looks up to people like Malcolm X and Martin Luther King for their uncompromising fight against racism, then join us to make that happen. We will be fighting for it in this country.